And Chris, we do know that the Redskins did indeed franchise tag Brandon Scherff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What does
absolutely.
that mean
morning,
for Scherff? Like, how much money is he going to be set to make?
Well, so it's weird. Now we have a CBA, which Zoe will explain in much better detail than I will, and we have a salary cap level of 198.2, but we don't have right now the actual salary cap figure or the actual franchise tag figure for the franchise tag players. We're expecting to get that today, but it's expected to be between $15 and $16 million. And the Redskins get pummeled here a little bit because he's a guard. It gets mixed in with the tackle money, meaning the tag tender level is higher than it normally would be if it was isolated from tackles to guards, if that makes sense. So it's not a good thing for the Redskins, in my opinion. It tells me, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, but I don't think I am, that they are pretty significantly far apart on a long-term deal. And if I'm Brandon Scherff, yeah, nobody wants just 1 year of security. I mean, well, I guess we'd all want that. But if I'm Brandon Scherff, I'm doing exactly what Kirk Cousins and exactly what agents and players have now turned to do. 5 years ago, I started preaching about this a long time ago, is now that's the new price tag. Now that's the new number we negotiate off of. Not your number, not the market number. That's the number we negotiate off of.
Yeah. All right, so what other directions do you see them going in the next couple of days?
I'd be very surprised if their first like if we were doing, in the absence of March Madness and a bracket, Jason, if we were doing like the top overall number one seed, in my opinion, will be tight end. And I assume they're going to go, they're going to go hard after Austin Hooper, the Atlanta Falcons tight end. I think that's a smart target. I don't know if it's smart if the bidding gets to be, say, like $12 million per year on average with all the requisite guarantees. And I think it's going to get 12, 13, somewhere in that range, maybe even a little higher because of the scarcity at that position. He's a two-time Pro Bowler. He's 25 and a half. He's obviously coming from a very successful passing offense. He's not a fluid route runner, i.e. Jordan Reed, when healthy. He's not an explosive, athlete, he's just going to make you, just melt into a puddle of goo when he busts off the line of scrimmage. But what he is he's sturdy, he's dependent, he knows how to find holes in zones, he can catch the rock well.
He's got good hands, yeah.
Yeah, got good hands. He's I guess the way I would describe him, based on what I've seen and people that I've talked to, is almost silky, kind of like silky smooth, maybe, is kind of, he's not going to make your eyes fall out to the floor like Jordan Reed used to with that sick little crossover off the line. If that's what you're expecting, you're not going to get that. But that's not on the market, and that's the problem, is Eric Ebron and Jimmy Graham are 1, 2, 3 after, or 2 and 3 after Austin Hooper, because Hunter Henry got the tag from the Chargers. That's the market, and those guys have significant questions. Jimmy Graham has age is a significant question, and Ebron is, really talented, but up and down. So Hooper represents the market, and everyone's going to be going after him, but that's the Redskins' number one need, and there's a scarcity at that position. Like cornerback is a huge need, but there's so many freaking corners. Yeah. That's why I don't know if they're going to pay $15 million for James Bradbury, quite honestly.
I was going to say a desperate team will overpay. That just happens. It happens every year.
And the Redskins are desperate at tight end, by the way. Yeah. Desperate.
What about receiver?
So I still expect them to add a veteran more than draft a young guy, which, people have been all over. And I know the hot name, Albert Breer from MMQB, last week put out Amari Cooper. I know Kime has done some work on that, saying the Alabama players. I don't see that, but, as of right now, he hadn't gotten tagged, right? We don't know what's going to happen with Dak Prescott, so we assume he's going to get meaning Prescott, tagged, meaning Amari Cooper's probably going to be free, right? Now, there was word last week that Dallas was inching close. I have no doubt the Redskins will be interested. To me, I think the better thing to do, especially if you land a guy like Hooper, or especially if you plan to go hard after Hooper and try and get maybe like 2 starters at corner, because I think that's what you need, is maybe going with a good veteran to mix in with McLaurin, Steven Sims, and Kelvin Harmon, and Trey Quinn, and a guy that jumps out to me, I don't know how others feel, is Emmanuel Sanders from San Francisco, was traded midway through the year last year. Still a guy who's got some juice in his legs, a guy who can be a number 1A-ish type, or a guy who can be a number 2. He's physical. He can run those routes over the middle, those Z-type routes, those intermediate crossing digs, all that stuff that you need in this offense if you're going to allow McLaurin to use his speed and athletic ability to run all those deep routes and all the second and third level stuff. That's just a name that I would say is an under-the-radar name that I'll throw out there besides the obvious, hey, like I'd love to have Amari Cooper. Well, I'd love to have Amari Cooper too, but I'm not paying him $18 million a year.
Joined by Chris Russell, Redskins Insider for 106.7 The Fan. Kind of want to ask you, and may not know the exact answer, when it came to the discussions of Tua, Chase Young, what they're going to do at number 2, Daniel Snyder's name got thrown in there. Now, when he hired Ron Rivera,
right,
he said this was going to be a coach-centric approach. The coach is going to be running things. Who's running free agency, and is Dan involved in some way?
Yeah, so as I've reported, I've been told by one really good source that Dan has no interference, no involvement directly in that at all. Now, that being said, does that mean he doesn't have any influence? Does that mean he doesn't have an opinion? Does that mean he doesn't have a wish or a desire? Of course not. He's the owner. I mean, look, I know in a perfect world we'd love for Dan Snyder to do nothing but sign checks and run a multi-bazillion-dollar business and stay out of the way. Yeah, I guess. But my understanding is Ron Rivera and Kyle Smith, who's going to be essentially, I mean, he is the GM right now, and I don't think they're going to hire a GM from the outside based on common sense and based on also what I've been told. Those 2 guys are running the show. Again, that doesn't mean that Dan, and Ron himself has admitted, hey, look, if we're hopelessly deadlocked, if we're tied, and we need we're going to go to Dan. So he's admitted that himself. But from what I understand, Dan is not saying, Ron, you have to draft Chase Young. You have to keep Dwayne Haskins. You have to do this. Now, if I know I've talked to somebody else who is very familiar with the inner workings of that building, and they believe that Dan has still got his fingerprints on everything. But fingerprints could mean a lot of things to a lot of people. So I know I was told definitively by somebody else who's very familiar with the operations of that building that he had absolutely zero involvement or interference, I guess is the word that he used, in terms of Kyle Smith and Ron Rivera's day-to-day function as the 2 top men in the football organization.
How different is it for the organization, all the NFL teams have to deal with this, without being able to travel and go to these pro days?
I think it's extremely prohibitive. So people, a lot of Redskins fans and a lot of NFL fans are like, good, yeah, we need free agency, this, that, and the other thing. I think this is how you make so many mistakes in free agency. The system was screwed up to begin with, this like dating period that we're going to embark on at noon, right? They don't allow you to meet face-to-face with free agents until Wednesday at 4 when the new league year starts. It's a bad rule. To me, when you're about to marry somebody and when you're about to commit to somebody, I truly believe like you got to get to know them face to face, person to person, over a couple of steaks and cocktails, right? Maybe you can't tell everything, but you might be able to tell that Josh Norman was a little bit of a phony, that Josh Norman was a little bit of a fraud if you have a system that allows this. That being said, moving on beyond that, then you throw on the fact that nobody can come and visit. Nobody can come and take a physical and officially ratify these deals, one. On top of that, the tone-deaf nature of it, okay, that's another thing. And then everybody's video conferencing. I don't know about you guys. I mean, listen, if you tried to do the radio show, all 4 of you, from different locations. It's not going to be the same, right? I mean, we have great technology. It's not going to be the same. I'm not able to do as good of a job being in, here in my own little studio as I would be if I was with you guys in person. I just feel that way. So maybe I'm old-fashioned and whatever. I think this has an impact. And here's the other thing real quickly. In terms of the pro days, listen, you've got a lot of your information, but you can never, ever, ever replace boots on the ground. And I'll just give you, for instance, with Alabama, the Redskins not only go and send 15 people to Alabama, they go a second time. They're one of the few, very few teams that go to Alabama a second time every year for the last couple of years to get more intel, to get more dirt, to get more one-on-one, to have a more private, intimate setting for their guys at Alabama. They've earned that. They've built that trust with Nick Saban. That's going to be hurt.
So what are they doing with the pro days? They're just not going to have them, or they're just
I guess. I mean, right? You can't have. I mean, what can you
Gotta
do?
go to the tape. Study the tape.
Or is it just going to be one camera at the field and everyone has to watch online?
I mean, I don't. Well, Jason, that's not a bad idea. I guess you could do that, but I mean, yeah, I guess you could do that, but. You
haven't heard that.
I haven't heard that specifically. I mean, maybe the NFL will have more clarity, but a lot of these campuses are shut down, right? And in order to run stuff like that, you still need gatherings of more than 50 people, I would assume, right? In order to put on something like that, because if you're going to do that, you're going to have a pro day for all of your athletes, which means you have to have coaches out there, you have to have medical people out there, you have to have all sorts of different functions. So I don't think you're going to have that. And here's the one thing I'll say. Of course you can judge tape. Of course you can grade tape. I got it. What you can't grade on tape is the character of a person. And what I keep going back to, and this is my problem with NFL free agency, you don't know how people are going to change when they get paid, or how they're going to change when they become professional and when they have everything even more catered to them. So to me, that's what's missing, and that's why there's so many swings and misses in the draft and in free agency, is we're just in a rush to judgment and a rush to just spend millions of dollars, and we don't get to know these people. It's like getting married without sleeping with somebody or without living with somebody. I know that's against people's religion in some cases, but you can't do it. So you
Russell,
shouldn't do it.
Does that mean with your ex-wife you guys had sex before you got married?
No comment.
I'll leave that out.
Yeah, it's just going to be weird. And then what are they doing with the NFL draft? Are they going to cancel that?
Oh, I mean, I think that
that's not that
supposedly
far away. It's 5 weeks away.
Yeah, I mean, they're not doing like the big shindig in Vegas. I can tell you that. In terms of like out in, I don't know where they were going to set it up, but they're not doing that public thing that they've done the last couple of years in Nashville and Philadelphia and in Chicago.
But they were going to set it up right there at the fountains at the Bellagio.
Right. That's where they were going to.
They were going to have a big stage right there next to the fountains.
I forgot, because they were going to bring in guys on like boats or whatever it was. So they're definitely not doing that. The question is now whether they delay that. I mean, I think they should delay free agency. I know it's a welcome distraction and all that. I know they're taking center stage. We have nothing else to talk. So in some ways, it's really good for all of us, and it's good for business. It's also tone deaf. I think they will probably delay the draft a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it might be, depending on where we are when we get to, say, I don't know, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, when you have to make that decision.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And then, baseball season might not start until late May, June. NBA season might just cancel the whole season altogether.
Jason, they're talking about what I read from
who knows about the NHL?
Woj last night, that the NBA teams are saying, you have to secure building dates in August. And then what do you do for next season? Like, say if you run the NHL and NBA season, it comes back and let's just say June 1st as an argument, right? Then you have a 2-month playoff period. So, now you're going till the end of July, early August, whatever it is. How do you start the next season on time in early October if you're the NHL, mid-October if you're the NBA?
I don't think you could. Some people are saying they should just start the NBA season at Christmas.
I mean, that might be what you do as a text trial balloon, But this would be the perfect time to do it. If you're thinking about doing it, do it now.
They might have to, if they do that and they continue the postseason this year in the summer, late summer. Next year they might have to start the regular season at Christmas time and just have an abbreviated season for that 1 year.
Or that should be the new season. I heard them starting to discuss that they almost think that if they waited until Christmas, let's say. They're
Right.
not competing with the NFL for the
Right.
first couple of months.
Yeah, maybe they do
And then
that.
they play all the way through August instead of ending in June.
Yeah.
And July and August are really slow months. Baseball is pretty much the only game in town. So if you have one of those seasons go in July and August, it might be a better fit for the calendar anyway.
Yeah, JP, to your point, that's what I think Atlanta Hawks owner, I believe it was,
Yeah.
said last week was his proposal, essentially what you just described. And, I mean, I'm a big hockey guy over basketball. I mean, who knows? Who wants hockey necessarily in mid-July? And there could be a lot of issues in terms of the ice level, and that's, conditions, and that's probably why you can't do it. But I would love hockey to be able to socially distance themselves from getting caught up in the muckety-muck of the NBA and March Madness and all that, because I want some of the focus and some of the spotlight on the Stanley Cup and the Stanley Cup playoffs. Maybe that's a way you can do it. But I also know if a building or if it's 95 degrees outside, that's not good for ice conditions inside a building.
Yeah, that wouldn't work.